Hi, BookTube. Well, it's a new day. It's been weeks. This outro for my Thanksgiving readathon is extremely late. Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to talk about, again, the challenges that I was supposed to get throughout the 7 or 8 days that we had this readathon back in November. And then I want to talk about which ones I completed and about which ones, you know, I'm going to go over the reviews. So this is going to be a little long. I'll try to make it quick though. Okay, so the first challenge that I had posted, if you guys wanted to participate, I don't think anybody did, which is totally fine. I was pretty much just doing this readathon for myself. But the first challenge was to read a book with fall colors. So it could be brown, it could have been orange, purple. Why the hell did I say purple? Wow. This is why I don't come back to BookTube very often, because I'm a nutcase. Orange, brown, yellow, or red. Now, with that being said, I read 2 books that fit that criteria. I finished The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern and written by William Goldman. Now, this book was super strange, and I guess I will talk about this now because I did finish it during the readathon. So this, if you guys have seen the movie from the 80s, I think, who directed it? It's at the tip of my tongue. Start with an R? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was a childhood favorite of mine. I watched it a million times. I still watch it to this day. The Princess Bride has so many good quotes that I'm always, what is with this hair? That I'm always saying in real life. One of the ones, is, of course, is Inconceivable. Such a good movie. However, when I found out that it was a book, I immediately had to own it. I own 2 editions of this book. The first one I purchased because I really liked the cover, and then I found out that this book was in existence and it had a map of Florin and like the city and everything. So I wanted this book particularly for the map. I don't know if people buy books just for maps, but I wanted the map, and so now I have 2 editions. I gave this book 4 stars. I read this to my children out loud. It took ages. I want to say like 6 months to finish this book, because at first we were reading it every single night, and then we would be skipping it, and then finally I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, we have to finish this book, and so we did. If you've seen the movie, then you know exactly what this book is going to have inside, except there's a lot of fourth wall breaking where the author talks directly to us, the readers, about why and how he created this book. Now, there are a lot of, this is really heavy, there are a lot of books that are written where it seems like the book isn't real. And this is one of them. And what I mean by that is William Goldman wrote this book, obviously. He's the author. But is S. Morgenstern a real person? I don't know. Is Florin a real city? I don't know. I could have looked all this stuff up prior to making this video, but I think the part where I'm not sure is the best part of the story. So he's talking to us about how he did the main story, The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride is supposed to be like very, very, very long, right? And so he wrote the abridged version of The Princess Bride, so that way we would enjoy it. And when he was small, the author, when you're thinking about the movie, I want you to think about Ben Savage and the grandpa, because Ben Savage is supposed to be William Goldman, like, and the grandpa is just supposed to be the dad. So, the dad would read The Princess Bride to William Goldman, and when he got older and he got his hand on a copy, he realized that all of the best parts that his father talked about in the story, it didn't go like that. The dad also abridged the story for his son, and so he figured, William Goldman, that he would abridge the story as well to make it more fun and interesting to us, the readers. Does that make any sense? It's so so confusing. But basically, if you do not know about The Princess Bride, which is shocking to me, it's about a princess. Well, she was a commoner at one point. Her name is Buttercup, and her farmhand, or her farm boy, Wesley. Now, they are budding romance duo. That's not even how you say it. They had a budding romance. Wesley goes off to seek fortune beyond the seas, so that way he can marry Buttercup and live happily ever after. But he's lost. There's word that he had died, and Buttercup is devastated and says that she's never going to love again, and so forth, until Prince Humperdinck calls to her and asks for her hand in marriage. And by this time, Wesley has been dead for a little while, and so she agrees. You know, there's no point in not getting married because your true love has died, and she might as well do something with her life. So Prince Humperdinck is going to marry her. He's not married to her yet when we start the book. She's just like a princess, or, you know, in waiting. And then we have the three side characters. We have Vicini, we have Inigo Montoya, and we have Fezzik. Now, Fezzik is a giant. Inigo Montoya is a Spaniard who is the best fencer ever. And then we have Vicini, who is the mastermind of the group. Now, at some point in the book, the three of them steal Buttercup and take her to the cliffs of insanity, where they are supposed to do away with her. And then comes in the dread pirate Roberts, who is going to rescue her, steal her, what have you. But he has to fight the three bad guys. And then we still have Prince Humperdinck, who is figuring out how to start a war with his rival country. Why can't I think of their name right now? I don't know. I don't know why. But basically that's the story. So it's a fantasy, right? And it goes from there. I gave it 4 stars because I didn't like it as much as the movie. I thought some parts were very boring. I absolutely hated the ending where the author wanted to bring in Buttercup's baby, like, at the end, which wasn't very interesting. I thought that the way the book ended, or the way the movie ended, was perfect, where they kissed and that's it. That's all I wanted to see. So this kind of dragged. There was a lot of, like I said, fourth wall, where he's talking to us, the readers, which I found kind of quirky but unnecessary. It was really cool to see where, like, Fezzik came from, where Inigo Montoya came from, where Vicini came from. So I liked the backstory to all of that, and I'm happy I was able to read the book for those aspects. But if you have seen the movie and you're reading the book just because, then wonderful. That's exactly what I did. But you don't need to read it if you've seen the movie, because the movie, like I said, is better. So this could be for challenge number 1, which was to read a book with the fall colors on it. But I'm choosing this book instead because I don't know. This is In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Lard Hunt. Now, this one actually got another, well, I guess. Well, we can do this for one challenge. This was the first challenge. The second challenge was read a book with the letter thanks in the title, T-H-A-N-K-S, which this title does have. Now, this book took me about 2 months to read. I kept putting it down. It is a teeny tiny book, and I love how chunky it is, but it was kind of strange, and so it took a while to get into and understand what was going on. Now, I don't know what the main character's name is in here, but they keep calling her Goody. And when I say they, I'll get farther into that in just a moment. So we have this woman who goes off to pick berries for her husband and young son. While she's out picking berries, she sees what looks like, I think, an imp or a dwarf or a fairy, some kind of magical creature, and he's across the river and he's doing something. And so when she crosses the river to go talk to him, the mythical creature says, you know, you shouldn't be here, you need to go home. And she's like, well, I'm just going to pick some berries. And so she wanders off and takes a nap. And when she takes the nap, when she wakes up, it's nighttime. Now, I don't know what happened to her shoes or her bonnet or the basket of berries. But when she wakes, she doesn't have any of them. And so she just starts meandering through the woods when she comes across this cabin. Now, I can't remember whether someone takes her to the cabin or if she finds the cabin on her own. I think Captain Jane is the one who escorts her to the cabin originally. And the cabin has this old woman that lives there, and she's very, very nice, and she brings our main character back to life. She keeps calling her Goody, and our main character says, that's not my name, I am not Goody. And so she spends a lot of time in this house where the old woman is very strange, and weird things happen while she's there. Now, she keeps telling this old woman that she has to leave because her husband and her young son is, you know, waiting for her. She promised them that she would be home with a basket of berries. And the old woman keeps bringing her back, like, no, you're fine. You'll go home eventually. Don't worry. We want you to be well and healthy. Your feet are all damaged from walking through the entire forest without shoes. Just stay here for a little bit longer. And Goody, I'm going to call her Goody now, escapes twice. Now, escape is kind of harsh. She doesn't escape, she leaves. She says, I'm leaving, I have to leave. And she goes off and she meets other forest people. Maybe not mythical creatures, but just people. And she goes on this very strange and dark, twisted adventure with all of these. And then she finally goes home and realizes that, you know, she liked being in the woods more. So she decides to go back. And that's basically the book. There's a lot of things that happen around the outside of that main story that I just said about the woman leaving her husband and son, going into the woods, coming back, and then leaving again. There's a lot of things that happen throughout that. And this is a dark fairy tale, like fantasy story, but it is very odd, and it does take a little bit getting used to when you're reading it, because at first you're kind of almost foggy and dazed. You are Goody walking through this weird forest, and you don't really know what's around the corner. I did like it. I did give this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite, and because it was very weird, and I couldn't continue to read it. Like, I had to keep putting it down because I just wasn't really that interested. That's why I gave it 3.5 stars. But maybe one day I will pick it back up and reread it when I'm not doing anything else or being distracted, and I'll enjoy it more then. But in the meantime, this does work for challenge number 2. Now, challenges 3, 4, 5, and 6, I didn't finish. Challenge 3 was to read a book set in autumn. Now, none of the books that I read never really said whether or not it was autumn. They kind of meandered through autumn and then it became winter. So it wasn't necessarily set in autumn. I could say I finished that challenge because all of the books went through that season, but I don't know. I think that's a little bit of cheating there. And then we had read a book with leaves on the cover. Now for that one I was supposed to read Foxlow. I never finished this book. Once I read it for you guys during the vlogging, I never picked it back up. And then we have read a book with food on the cover, which was Consume. I never picked this book back up either, although it might be good. I don't know. We'll see. My bookmark fell out. I don't even know what page. Oh, I think I was on chapter 2. I think I just read to chapter 2 and then stopped. With these kinds of books where I only read the first chapter, sometimes I just put it back on the shelf and then reread it at a later time when I remember, and I just pretend that I've never read it before, because it's only like, you know, 10 to 20 pages, and by the time I actually pick it back up, I'll forget what I read. So I'm not worried about those ones. Then we had read a book that cost you some gravy. Now, I did finish Goblin by Josh Malerman. This was supposed to be for the challenge of that. However, I did finish this one the next day. I guess I could count it. Is that, I mean, it was my readathon, right? I'll count it. I'll count it. So, so this was for number 6. Now, Goblin is the town that this entire book is set around. So if you are a Stephen King reader, or if you've seen any of his movies, or if you just know Stephen King, you know, just from, you know, passing by, most of his stories are set in Castle Rock, which is a made-up town in Maine. Goblin is a made-up town. I don't know where it's located. It doesn't really say. But I wish that there was more books written by Josh Malerman in this town, because this town is amazing. I gave this book, what did I give it? I gave it 4 stars. Why didn't I give it 5? I think I'm going to change it to 5. 1, it's Josh Malerman, so I'm a little bit biased. But 2, I didn't really find any fault in any of the stories. Here's the inside flap. Here's the outside. It's got like a little key to the city, which is, you know, one of the main things in the book. It is signed by Josh Malerman, and I had to pay $50 for this book. And I know people in the comments, even my most recent video, are like, I can't believe you spent that much money on a book. It's totally true. But if you buy a pair of shoes for $50 and then those shoes get ruined and then you have to throw them away, you got your use out of it, right? This will be on my shelves until I die. So I'm definitely getting use out of it, and I can reread it as many times as I want, and I really enjoyed it. And it's from one of my favorite authors. So it totally makes sense in my eyes. If you're not a book collector, or if you don't like books as much as I do, then it wouldn't make sense to you. But this did cost me some gravy. Now, this is a collection of short stories. There are 8 stories, I believe, in here. There's the first and the last, which both tie in together, but they had a very good ending and beginning on each one, so I'm counting them as 2 separate stories. And then we have the other ones sprinkled in. Now, all of the characters in this story are, like I said, they're all a part of the same town, so everybody knows everyone, but they're all very different, and they were all very good. Very creepy, very strange, very unusual. But if you like short story collections and you like Josh Malerman, then you may like this book. I did say this in my last video. This is not something that you can buy anymore. I got this from Earthling Publishing, and if you go to their website, this is under like can no longer purchase. So if you can find this very rare book either on ebook or borrow it from somebody who has it, I would highly recommend. It's a lot of fun and definitely worth the read. But that's basically all I can say about this book, because it is short stories and they're all just around this town. I don't really know what to say. The town is always dark and gray. It's like it's always raining. The cops look like putty. Everybody is scared of the cops in this town because they don't look normal. They kind of look alien, and they wear dark aviator glasses because their eyes are very strange. So people don't like messing with the police there. But I don't think they think that the police are monsters. I, however, do. And a lot of weird things happen. That's all I'm going to say. It was a fun read, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm changing my star rating to 5 now that I think about it. I don't know why I gave it a 4. Okay, and then we have Challenge 7, which was read a book about change, whatever your interpretation that is. And so I read Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. This one actually was for Challenge 7, 8, and 9. So for 8, it was read a book with family or travel on the cup or as the core. And so that definitely took place in this book as well. And then the bonus was read a book in your favorite cozy spot. And my favorite cozy spot is the most uncomfortable chair possible in the kitchen at the dining room table. And you might think, how is that cozy? It's not necessarily cozy, but it makes me pay attention to the book, because once I get cozy, then I start wanting to look at my phone or take a nap or do something else. But the kitchen chair makes me really focus on my reading, and that's where I do most of my reading. So this book, oh my gosh, this outro is going to be mostly this book, because wow, let me tell you about this book. So this book came out in 2005, the same year Twilight came out. They were only a few months apart. Nobody talks about this book like they talked about Twilight. And I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this up. Now, when I was reading this, I was shocked. And I did text Ashley and I said, people talked about how it was disgusting how Bella and Edward were together, because Bella's 17, right? Edward is 18, but he's actually like 109, something like that. And so they're like, oh, it's such a creepy age gap, you know. We have this young teenager and he's like this old man. Not really, but kind of. I get that. But, you know, Twilight mainly focuses on the toxic relationship. This one is like reading Lolita and Twilight in one. And I'll tell you why. We have a 10-year-old child who is black, and she wakes up in the forest in total pain. Now, when I first read the synopsis for this book, I thought, and I told you guys, that she was a 53-year-old woman who woke up in a child's body, and that's not the case. She's a 53-year-old vampire who is born, but she's half vampire, half human. She had a human mother. They genetically engineered her to be a vampire with this human gene in her. That way, as a black girl, she can walk in the sunlight, so the sun doesn't affect her. And, but she's got all of the vampire aspects. So they wanted the human aspect of her being able to walk in the sun, but then everything else is vampire. So she wakes up in the woods, and she's very, very sore, and she's very, very hungry. And then we go through the first 3 days, and then she decides, okay, she's done being in this cave that she found herself in, and she doesn't want to hunt deer anymore. Another like Twilight thing. So she decides she's going to go out and find people, and she goes out onto the main highway, and this man picks her up, and he's already intrigued by her, and he's like telling her, you know, what's wrong, I'm gonna take you to the hospital. And she goes, no, please. And he goes, well, let me call the cops then, maybe they can find your parents. And she's like, no, 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 no. And so she bites him, and then he's like taken aback. He's like, what's wrong with this child, why is she? And then the bite feels funny, and then he starts looking at her, and then the bite feels a little bit like good, and then he's still looking at her, and then he says, you can stay with me. And then she drinks his blood from his neck. And you know how, you know, in most vampire stories, the blood itself, like the actual sucking, almost like a mosquito, where, you know, when a mosquito bites you, you don't necessarily feel a lot of the sucking. You feel the initial, like, prick of their needle, their nose, whatever mosquitoes have. But then it's kind of like numbed, so that way your body doesn't know it's doing it. Same thing happens with vampires. They bite you. Their venom is numbing, but also erotic. Like, you feel like, you know, these sensual things, and you really, really like it. It's a drug. People get addicted to it, right? So not only does the man get addicted to the vampire's venom and everything else, but he doesn't care that she's 10 and they do naughty hanky-panky stuff, and she's fine with it because intellectually she's 53. She's been alive for 53 years, but her body is slowly getting aging, you know what I mean? So even though she's 53, her body has only aged the 10 years. So we have this whole Lolita thing, right? Where the rest of the book, there's all of these adult male and females who have sex with this 10-year-old girl. Nobody cares that that's like pedophilia, because she's the main character. She initiates it. She's a vampire who's 53. So logically, everyone's like, well, she's old enough, but physically, she doesn't look it. She's got no boobs. She's super, you know, tiny. And this is, I don't know what to say. Like, it was so shocking when I was reading this. I was like, oh my God. And you remember how I was like, the words are so small. That's going to take me forever to read. I was worried I wasn't going to finish this during the Readathon, and I finished this in almost a day. It was fast-paced. It was shocking. It was something new. I've never, you know, read a book with a female vampire as its main, like, character, or how powerful she was in the aspect of, like, her own sexuality. And it was very strange. I was on the fence. You know, I'm like, okay, I like this book, but it also makes me feel dirty. I like the way it's written, but it's also totally taboo. It's, I don't want people to think that I think pedophilia is okay, because it's absolutely not, but this book is so good. So my first taste of Octavia was a good experience, and I definitely want to pick up more of her stuff. It was funny because, like I said, with the whole Twilight thing, everybody was talking about Twilight and how much of a crappy book it was and how Stephanie Meyer is, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't hear anything about this book. Maybe because it's an adult book, but no one has talked about this. And even when you go into the Goodreads reviews for this book, hardly anybody talks about the fact that we have a 10-year-old little girl who's having sex with these adult male and females. There is no sexual like orientation in this book. Everybody's fluid. You just have sex with whoever you want. And I was surprised. I was very surprised with that story. Okay, so those are all of the books that I read during the readathon. I'm going to show you the other two books that I was supposed to read. I read Are You Sleeping during the vlogging aspect, and then The Waking Forest. I didn't even finish the chapter. I got to page 18, which was like, let me see. Oh, actually, I lied. 18 was in chapter 2. So I was almost at chapter 3 when I stopped. This one, I literally can't remember anything. So I'm definitely going to have to reread these. This one I absolutely remember because it was so strange. But these three I'm going to have to reread at a later time. Now, before I leave you, I do want to share with you guys The Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I'll put it in my November wrap-up because it's a little long and I have a lot to say about this book. This was supposed to be for the first challenge, and I did finish this like a day or two in December. So I could have continued on with this book. Like, I could have added it to this wrap-up. But I think I'll wait just because I really want to give it more thought, and this video is already long as it is. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming with me on my vlogging journey of my made-up readathon that I created on the last minute. And let me know down below if you guys even like vlogs. I know that I like watching other people vlogging, but I swear I don't know how to put them together properly to where they are cool and unique and it kind of like brings you in. I don't have the editing software for that kind of thing. I don't have the qualifications for anything more than what I give you guys now. So if you like the vlogs, give this video a thumbs up. I will continue making them. Give me a thumbs up anyway. If you like me as a person in my videos. It's funny because in 2021, I'll have been doing this for 7 years now, and I haven't gotten any better. You would think after so many years that I would be more pro at having a YouTube channel, but I'm not, and I'm still very the same person I was back then. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys are enjoying your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.